when you're doing like software development, you have your experts who are very experts in how to do software. And then you have your client who maybe doesn't understand anything about software, but they just have there some kind of, they have a problem and they want a solution. I actually think when we were starting, or maybe a bit before we were starting the company, kind of when we were still like just thinking, okay, should we take this forward or what should we do? Currently, I'm working with this research to business project, KAJO Neurotechnologies, actually what we call it nowadays.
Hey there, active change maker, and welcome back to another riveting episode of the ThinkPod, where we examine how ideas transform into actions, and actions into real-world solutions in Finland. If you're living in Finland or outside and all about sparking ideas, connecting with people, and making real-world waves, this one is for you. In the spotlight today is a student entrepreneurship movement in Helsinki, Finland, that is shaping the next generation of Nordic global leaders. This community is known as the Helsinki Think Company, the entrepreneurship society of the University of Helsinki. You can see their presence in all 4 campuses of the university with a mission to turn academic knowledge into real-world solutions. On today's episode, we'll be talking about innovations in life sciences. Life science innovation has the potential to revolutionize the healthcare industry, improve quality of life, and obviously foster economic growth. It is a process that involves the collaboration of scientists, engineers, healthcare practitioners, clinicians, businesses, pretty much everybody, to develop solutions to help people live longer and healthier lives. We are here particularly interested in science-based innovations, meaning how fundamental science makes an impact on the real world. I'm Aleksandra Dobrego, and welcome to ThinkPod. And my guest today is Joel Noutere, a person with whom I was really excited to talk, especially here in the podcast. He is an innovator and a former scientist. He works for the University of Helsinki at the moment, and I'm looking forward for him to tell you more about himself. If you could introduce yourself in a couple of words.
Yeah, thanks, Aleksandra. Yeah, I think scientist is maybe a bit generous for me, but I'll take it. I think my journey started in this building. Well, actually, the building next door here at the Kumpula campus when. After my military service, I started here at the physics department as a student. I don't think I completed one course during all the years I was enrolled in the physics department. I don't think I ever finished one course. But that was mainly because at the time I was really theoretical physics is a bit too theoretical for my taste, and I was really thinking at the time that I want to be a medical doctor, because for some reason that was back then what I thought was my future journey. I'm very happy that didn't happen, because if it did, now I would be a finished MD and I would be looking for something else to do, I think. Currently I'm working with this research to business project, KAJO Neurotechnologies, actually what we call it nowadays. And yeah, I can tell you a bit more about how my journey got to here,
Sure.
From here to here, basically. But
Sure, let's talk about that. And just for our audience, what is a research to business project? Business Finland gives grants on different kind of innovation activities. And in this case, if you have an idea and you're a researcher, you can make up a team and apply for a research to business grant, which lasts usually up to 2 years. Is yours a 2-year grant as well?
Yeah, we have the 2-year one. I think they do either 1 or 2 years nowadays, and it's capped to some amount. I'm not exactly sure about the amounts.
All right.
But yeah.
Okay, great. But I was wondering if you could go back a little bit to your after Kumpula campus experience. And as I know, you did kind of apply to the medical school. And then in the medical school, people do get to be doctors, right? And then they just mostly do the clinician's part. What went wrong at that stage? Or
right. Well, in the hindsight, what went right? No, I did apply a few times. Meanwhile, I was working, and every spring there was this time when I was, cramming for the entrance exams, and I was always every time from basically January to May, it was just
right.
It was not great. Then one year I was thinking I will just, I will apply to molecular biology program here in Viki. And I was just thinking at the time, I will try, and if I get in, I can do that for 1 year and then, apply again. Which happened, I got accepted. And then I started the studies in molecular biology, and I think it took couple courses, and I realized that this is much more what I want to do. From there I started studying. In the first year I went to talk to this professor. I'm not sure if he was professor at the time. Anyway, Andrei Domansky. He had a research group in the Institute of Biosciences, and asked hey, can I have basically no experience. I have some lab courses. Can I come work here or do some kind of internship? And against odds, he said, yeah, come here. And I will explain later why this was kind of funny that I got to that Andrei's group. So then I got about 2 years in my studies, and after that, me and some of my fellow students, we decided that, hey, it wouldn't be a good idea to start a company. Mm-hmm. And then we started this our company called SciR, and it was basically, we were making this kind of advanced software for laboratory environments. And then we had a good run, about I think 3.5 years, something like that. But after all, during the COVID times, things were not that easy, and we were, I was at least then forced to kind of look, okay, I have to do something, have to pay the bills. So then I got a job at this other biotech startup in Finland called FinAdvance, also called Akita nowadays, where I was kind of working with the commercial and sales side of things. They are developing these organ on chips, basically for drug development. Mm-hmm. And from there I then transferred to the current role in the KAJO Neurotechnologies.
So I'm really interested in that, because one of the issues that we have in the innovations in different universities is how to get people interested in actually innovating instead of doing just research, right? And I don't want to sound diminishing by just research, but by doing this kind of fundamental science that has long-term effects, but also is very slow in terms of the impact that it has on the society. So do you feel like it was always there in you, that you actually wanted to do something real on your own company, or do some services on networking or some kind of environment that you were in? Did they kind of affect you in the way to become a founder?
Yeah, I think for me it was... It was probably always there. I think because basically all of my, extended family and relatives, I think, if not all 95% of them are now or has been entrepreneurs or something similar. So I think for me it was kind of easy to think that could be an option, and that could maybe be what I want to do. And I also knew from very early on I couldn't be a researcher. I have huge respect for everyone who is, but I don't have the, I don't know, I don't have the stomach for it or something. Just something a bit too narrow, too long, so something like that. I'm maybe a bit more like generalist kind of person. But yeah, coming back to the kind of like, was there something at the time? I actually think when we were starting, or maybe a bit before we were starting the company, kind of when we were just still like just thinking, okay, should we take this forward or what should we do? I think at the time there was actually quite limited support, at least here at the university. And nowadays I think it's a lot better. But I would say like among the students, there was a bit of defeat in the air because a lot of them were, people who applied for medical school but didn't get in, and they were thinking like, okay, that's the only way to make a decent living in life. And then they were saying, okay, our only option is to become a researcher, never have any money or being able to own a house or a boat or a dog or anything, which is of course nonsense. But that was maybe the general idea I had by then. I have my epiphany like, okay, this is what I want to do more. And I was like more in like that there are tons of opportunities, like, but I think the young students at the time didn't always see the kind of that there are quite many different paths you can take in life.
I see. So maybe some kind of education in entrepreneurship was also missing at the university because, well, if you're led by a professor or a PI and you see this kind of academic path where you do a PhD, a postdoc, and then kind of proceed in academia, then it's really hard to see where is the sidetrack. I wonder, you said university didn't really have much support at the time when you founded Sire, even though you were working in Andrei's group at the time when you founded the company, right? So it was kind of related to so you were affiliated with the University of Helsinki when you created a startup, but still.
Yeah. I was, I think once we founded Sire, I was working in another group. I think during the couple of years, I was in, I think, 3 different research groups. And then one summer, I think I was working with the National Institute for Health and Welfare, the biobank they have, and actually there I met one of the co-founders, the Felix.
Right.
So it was all this kind of different these sidetracks and everything that led to the point where we had kind of like all the pieces, and then we started a company. But yeah.
All right. And Sire was all about digital health, so helping the researchers and also in the corporate maybe to digitalize the information that they've gotten.
Yeah. Digital health is maybe a bit like, maybe a bit too kind of like in health. Of course, like at the end it would be about health, but I think that it was more like, I don't know, laboratory 4.0, something like that.
Right.
But yeah, basically what we want to do is like, or what we want to bring to, because we had seen laboratories, of course, mostly academic laboratories, and how the research is done. It turned out later that things are not much better in the industry, at least wasn't at the time. But yeah, we kind of saw how painstaking it is to do research, and then on top of that, everything is done manually or with the paper, and you make mistakes. You make mistakes in documentation. Your documentation is maybe incoherent for someone else who's reading it. So yeah, we kind of had this idea that we want to help that, and there were many different things that led to the kind of idea that we had.
Do you think the situation is better now with life sciences, like in terms of everything manual and many mistakes?
I mean, sure. I think the change is going to be slow, but there are at least I know at least a couple different companies. Of course, we had our rivals at the time, and there are a lot of these companies offering smart and digital solutions for different parts of the kind of laboratory work, and like whether it's drug research or like drug discovery part of it, whether it's like manufacturing or something. But there are, I think, a lot of things are being done, but it's a slow moving ship.
Yeah, I bet. And then you, in the times of Corona, you felt like you want to give up on that.
Well, yes and no. Not right away. I think once the whole COVID situation started, I think we were hoping like, okay, this will take about 6 months. Everything is back to normal. I think that was everybody was at least secretly hoping for. But yeah, things didn't work out as we planned, and as we all know now. So it took a lot longer. And at some point, it was just a necessity. You know, we pivoted a little bit with the idea. We went more into kind of consulting. We had been doing a lot of consulting type of projects while we were kind of selling the product. But then we kind of thought, okay, we will do more just pure consulting, since that was more like we didn't have to worry about if our internal kind of product was perfect or filled the needs of every client. But with our knowledge from the kind of laboratory digitalization, we were able to use that as kind of like our product being more or less experts in that field. But then at some point it was just becoming too slow. So it was, at least for me, it was just, well, have to do something.
Yeah, and then then when you decided to kind of step away from it, you went to FinAdvance, and you didn't spend a lot of time there though. But
I think it was something like 1.5 years, something like that.
Which was also a university spin out, right, at the moment?
Actually, no.
No. Okay.
FinAdvance was not a university spin out. It was founded by Pratik Singh, who is the founder, and he was actually the solo founder of the company, and now is the CEO. So it wasn't a spin out from the university.
Yeah, right. So that was an industry kind of thing. You didn't have any experience of working with, I don't know, scientists or academics in that regard. So did the team mostly consist of scientists?
At FinAdvance, yeah, there were mostly scientists in the team, because there was like the fabrication, the manufacturing of the actual products, and then there was the kind of like developing the assays on the microfluidic devices. My job was mostly to work with the clients. Of course, they were usually mostly scientists, but of course, during SIAR, I had already been discussing mainly with different scientists from different backgrounds in different kind of laboratories, different kind of environments, different fields. Somewhere in oil and gas, somewhere in pharmaceuticals. So in that sense, and I had my background in the biosciences, so I think I still had like quite good ways to communicate with the scientists, either in the kind of in the customer end or internally in our company.
So this is interesting what you're saying, because and before we go to KAJO, could you elaborate just very quickly, why do you think it's interesting to communicate with scientists versus non-scientists? Like, why do you think you have this hedge?
Well, I think it's a similar issue that there is many times with kind of like, especially I can take from the SIAR as one example, that when you're doing like software development, you have your experts who are very experts in how to do software. And then you have your client who maybe doesn't understand anything about software, but they just have there some kind of, they have a problem and they want a solution. They don't care. So you need someone kind of in the middle to interpret the different things, like interpret what the technical people are saying, like, okay, this is what we can and cannot do and how much we need time. And then you have the client on the other end who you kind of, they have some need, but then you have to kind of dig a bit deeper, like, okay, like okay, how do we do this? How do you want to, what do you want the end result be, and so on. So I think it's a bit same in the whether you're talking about software development or something else. You still have that. You have your client who has just basically some kind of need or some problem that they're trying to solve, or you're basically trying to solve for them. And then you have your technical people on the other end, and you just kind of have to make sure the process goes smoothly forwards, and also kind of interpret maybe a little bit like, okay, what does this person mean with something else? So yeah, I think that's. I don't know if that answers the question.
Definitely, yeah, that definitely answers the question. And let's talk about the project. So could you give me a couple of words of what the project you're working on is about now, what your role there is?
Yeah, I will try to keep it simple. At the KAJO Neurotechnologies, it's still a bit pending, and let's see, but yeah, currently KAJO Neurotechnologies. What we do is we're developing basically ways to make human brain cells which are defected during Parkinson's disease, basically to be used to either study Parkinson's disease or finding cures for it. The Parkinson's disease is just a kind of starting point, but then we are looking later in the project also other like Alzheimer's and other neurodegenerative diseases, because they have some similarities in the kind of protein misfolding and protein aggregation inside the cell. So I won't go too deep into that, of course, but that is basically what we're doing. And like I mentioned earlier, why it was funny that I went to Andri and got to that group to do my first internship is that this KAJO R2B project is basically the same group that I went to then. It's not entirely same group because Andri actually left for Orion some time ago, but Mikko Eravara, who is the professor, he kind of took over the Andri's group, and I think they were already working like very closely before that. So yeah, it's basically I'm coming back here. So yeah.
All right. So KAJO Neurotechnologies is mostly focusing now on Parkinson, but they will be also expanded to other neurodegenerative diseases. And as I understand, there is you started with science, and there were many years of scientific experiments there, and now you are thinking that you can commercialize it. So what is your role also within the commercialization process?
Yeah, exactly. So the Andri's group and Mikko's group, they have been working a long time with Parkinson's. You know, even before I was even before I knew what neuroscience was. Mm-hmm. So yeah, from that comes all this kind of. They have expertise in the protein aggregation. They have expertise in stem cell work and stem cell differentiation into neurons. So they already sold. I think Mikko's group before the R2B, they sold services for pharma where they were using basically mouse primary dopamine neurons, which were basically, I think, the best model available, at least at the time, maybe even still, like until we get our stuff in the market. But no, but they were selling the mouse neuron platform basically as a service for pharma until the pharma company closed the neurodegeneration department. So, but I think kind of there they got the idea that, okay, if this has commercial kind of commercial potential, should we make this work in human dopaminergic neurons? The problem is, you know, with mice, you can actually just take the mice and get the neurons. Like, yeah, it's not pretty, it's not nice, but it's doable. Like, it's legal. Yeah. from humans, you really can't do that. So then you have to find another way to kind of, okay, how do we get the neurons? So what you can do is you can take stem cells, basically the cells you have, let's say in your skin, somewhere that the cells that are able to divide to different kind of cells, and then you can actually reprogram those cells to become the neurons, and in this case, these specific dopaminergic neurons. That's what they have been developing, and now my role as Business Finland calls it, the commercial champion, which I'm not sure if it tells anyone what's it doing, but basically it's a person who has some commercialization experience, and they are basically helping the scientists to together kind of take the research and then look at the markets, actually try to understand the markets and somehow combine these two. So I identify the market needs, doing market research, and then kind of trying to advise the scientific team, like, okay, what should we do? What should we be doing? What should we maybe try to do? Kind of what kind of data should we be trying to produce, and so on, and then try to kind of gift wrap it for I don't know, either future clients or future investors. But the R2B project is I think it's very useful tool for researchers, because it's like, even though you're not allowed to basically sell you're not allowed to have like commercial activities yet, but you can do everything kind of preparing for it. And then once you actually do get to the point where you're able to found a company upon this the IP from this project, then you have done all the groundwork. You have your market research done, your IP strategies done. So I think it's a really good instrument for a lot of researchers.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense, because life science innovation is so long. Like it can take years to actually like have something to sell and to suggest something ready-made. So this research to business, it seems like it can save you 2 years of work that none of the investors would probably give you. Is it a problem to get external investments after ending this project and maybe not having anything ready yet, because that's just how healthcare, life sciences work?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't dare to try to say, like, is it in general problem, or is it easy to get funding after the project? But what I think is that I think it's good to have the 2 years to kind of really lay the good foundation for the for the different, like, for the actual commercialization, because if you go directly to, like, let's say you have the IP, like, especially in other universities somewhere, I think at least in Sweden, it's like the university doesn't own the IP, it's the researcher. So basically their researcher could have the IP, and they're just like, okay, I'm going to make a company. They go to investor, and what they then have to do is produce results to get the next round of funding and the next round of funding. And that can be really, really tough. Like, I'm not saying it couldn't be done. It can be done, and it's but I think not every great research holds potential commercially. So I think it's kind of a pretty safe way to approach the possibility of founding a company based on some IP.
Yeah, and just for clarification, IP meaning intellectual property.
Intellectual property.
Yeah, what does it mean in practice that the university holds the IP? That basically a university is an owner, a shareholder of the company.
Yeah, I mean, in R2Bs, basically, as long as it's a research group under the university umbrella, it means that any new IP coming out of the project belongs to the university. And once you decide to spin out, and there is a whole process about that, but once it's decided that the company will spin out, then it's basically negotiating the terms with the university, like how is the university basically compensated about like giving us the permission to utilize the IP.
And I wonder, based on that, actually, you were talking a bit earlier that you didn't have much support from the university with your first startup, Sire, even though it wasn't targeted life sciences, still it was around them somehow evolving, also including other fields. And then you had an experience in FinAdvance and now KAJO, and all of this has happened through many changes around us, the COVID-19 and the change we are witnessing now. What do you think changed in the Finnish ecosystem overall in terms of life science innovation, and from the point of view of someone who innovates himself, or maybe even specifically to the University of Helsinki? So.
Yeah, well, let's start smaller. So let's start with the university, because I think let's then go to the geopolitical stuff. No, I think from the university point of view, I do want to say they were already doing things when we were founding Sire, and we did join I think it was called Terkko Health X accelerator at the time. I don't know what it's called nowadays.
It's Health X.
Oh, it's Health X. Yes. Okay. Anyway, so there was definitely something that was being done, but like nowadays there are these different accelerators and incubators for different. I think for all the campuses, like, there are different programs for purely life science. Then there's the computer and natural sciences here,
right?
And then so I think nowadays there are much more kind of like focused efforts for different kind of niches, because they have very different needs, and it's a total different approach if you're trying to make some kind of consumer to business to consumer application, or if you're trying to invent a new drug for diabetes.
Yeah. And do you feel like there are a lot of life sciences opportunities now, or is it still more pharma, as you said, drug for diabetes, or medical related things?
I think that there are endless opportunities. It depends what you want to do. Obviously, if you are developing a new drug or something, you probably are not, a first-year student trying to come up with your own startup. Probably, you never know.
Yeah. So, do you feel like life science innovations at the university now get a bit more attention than before the COVID-19, for instance?
Yes, I think that's very definite. Yes, that at the time, kind of people woke up that there are actually a lot of important things done by researchers in also, because I think when we were starting, there was a lot of things were saying things like life science, but what they really meant was mostly health tech, med tech, wellness apps, or something like this. I think nowadays there are more, especially if you think about the whole investment scene in Finland. I think it has matured a lot. Also, I think the startup scene has matured a lot. So if you were able to get your funding, in 2016, 17, something like that, if you were able to get your funding, then by having very good business plan, very good slide deck, you might not be able to do it now no more, because during COVID, a lot of investors got a bit more cautious about their money, so they maybe demanded a bit more from the companies. I don't think now is any better situation with the whole situation in Ukraine, creating again more some insecurity, and then people are being more cautious. But yeah, so it just means that you have to really do your homework. You have to really understand what the investors are looking for, and I think in that sense, the kind of also the ecosystem developing, like the different accelerators and incubator programs where you can basically get the really good expert advice from basically previous founders, and maybe meet also investors and kind of understand what they are really looking for, so you don't basically blow your chances by going to the investors and not being prepared at all. Of course, it's always like in relation to how good is your innovation, or how big is the business opportunity. But still, I think nowadays it's everything is much more mature, and I think there is more money to go around in the also in the Finnish investor ecosystem. But I think the competition is also probably harder nowadays.
And that's interesting. And moving to the end of the episode already, I would like to ask just maybe the final question of, throughout your experience in at least 3 different companies that are, 2 of them are very life sciences, one is like around it. Do you think when a person or a scientist wants to innovate, it's about the idea first or about finding the team? Because so far what I've got, you said you had a first team member in the biobank. You met your first team member. So is it firstly that you're walking around with the idea and like, whom can I get? Who would be the CEO? But then.
Yeah. I think it's probably always more or less, different case by case. But for us, it was maybe for SciR, it was maybe more like we had just a couple people first, and we were just discussing that we all are in the same page. We would like to maybe do something interesting, maybe something else than going into the research or going into big pharma middle management or something. So there it was maybe more like, okay, we had people first, then we had then we kind of formulated what we actually think we should do. But then, I think if you're talking about deep tech, well, it depends. I think usually for research, very research-based startups, I think then it basically has to be, you have your you have your people first, and then you have the idea, okay, we might want to commercialize this, and then you build it from there. But I mean, you never know. Of course, I think would be better if you have some idea before you start doing something, because how do you know what to do if you don't really know what you want to do? But yeah, I think it depends, of course, a lot.
Okay, that was really insightful, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us and your experience. I hope that our listeners will enjoy. And thank you for joining us for another episode of ThinkPod. If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe, like, and leave us your comment, questions, thoughts, and we will get back to you. Also, stay tuned for more inspiring stories and extraordinary journeys that shape our world in Finland. Until then, keep innovating and keep making an impact.